I want to get to now. Let's talk about Nic Scourton. Man, this kid is so goddamn fun to watch. And he was one of my favorite guys during the season when I spotted him and he was already out for recommendation on RPM. I made a lot of notes on him, rewatched him this summer, already have posted some clips on him. God, he is aggressive as shit. Background on him that you've got though, 6'4", 280 is nuts. He's built like a defensive tackle and he plays like an edge rusher, which is kind of insane. I almost wonder if 280 is maybe a little too heavy. But what do you got for notes on the former Boilermaker?
Well, I told you this already, Joe. Younger than James Pierce Jr. Nick,
which is nuts.
His name is I'm gonna try it. So Nic Scourton, okay, formerly Nick Caraway was what he was originally known as. Changed his name before this past.
I still
season.
want to know the backstory for that. It doesn't make any.
In his bio, it has I think his dad listed as Scourton, his mom listed as Caraway. So I imagine he just took one's name versus the other in the end. Whatever. It sounds like that's much different backstory for a different podcast, but I can find out that information for you, no doubt. But he is August 25th, 2004 is his birthday. We're talking about a 2004 kid, which it just makes me want to vomit. But he's 19 years old and he's not going to be 20 years old before a month before the season starts. The games will start as he is turning 20 years old, which is just absolutely wild to think about. Yes. When you look at his background now, he really strange for a Purdue kid originally. So he is out of Bryan, Texas. Okay. Bryan, Texas, went up to play at Purdue. And I looked at his recruiting background as far as his star rankings and everything, Joe, and it's kind of bizarre, man, because I looked at it and it is similar to what I just said with James Pierce Jr., where a couple are pretty high on him, and then the others, it's a wide array of opinions on Nic Scourton or Nick Caraway coming to Bryan High School. So 247 Sports and Rivals both had him as top 200 player in his class in the 2022 recruiting class. Rivals was the highest, actually. They had him as number 107 overall player, number 8 number 8 defensive lineman coming out of the 2022 class. ESPN, which I know you said doesn't matter, but also on 3, only had him as a 3-star player. On 3 had him as number 51 defensive lineman in the 2022 recruiting class, which is pretty wild. So 2 4-star rankings, 2 3-star rankings for Scourton. But here's the weird part. That's not even the weird part. The weird part, Joe, is at that time, him coming out of Bryan High School, he had one Power 4 offer. A single. It was Purdue. Because now you can look at it and say SMU is now a Power 4 school technically, but that was his next biggest offer at the time. That was a AAC team. That was a group of 5 team. So he had SMU, he had Tulane, he had UTSA, he had Western Kentucky, Marshall, Memphis, Louisiana, Colorado State, Nevada, New Mexico, North Texas. That was his offer list outside of Purdue. No idea why, because I looked up his production also out of Bryan High School and he was very productive. Played in a pretty strong area of football in the state of Texas. Showed up at Purdue as a freshman with 6'4", 260 pounds. Sophomore year, now 6'4", 280 pounds. Now over at Texas A&M. No idea why this kid was as lightly recruited as he was, but he did not have an overly impressive offer list, which is kind of odd.
I always find it really funny, and I've kind of had the time to watch a couple of these other edge rushers that are bigger names, and you watch guys like JT Tuamoila who now don't have as much production as a guy like Nic Scourton, and also aren't as springy and explosive and flexible. I just always wonder how recruiting rankings miss on guys like Scourton, and maybe it's a little bit late blooming.
It wasn't even the recruiting ranking though. We had a platform that had
the schools too. Yeah, the schools too missing out on him that there weren't any SEC programs, and now here he is at Texas A&M. Jumping in on evaluating him, you mentioned the size. 280 is huge for a stand-up rusher, 4-3 defensive end. I think that he could play either role. He is a hulking mass, and he plays exactly how you would expect. He plays like a boxer. He goes to war like he is going into a fight fist first every single time he comes off the ball. I love his get-off. I love his mentality. He is swinging and he is punching. His bull rush is super powerful. He anchors well against the run and locates the football well. And then the last thing that I think really encapsulate his athletic ability and what he brings to the table as a defensive end is his spin moves is super dangerous. Like it is a really, really nasty spin move that he has the technique down to a T on exactly what he needs to do to succeed. And he has the close down ability to produce off of that. So I think that Scourton checks all the boxes, and maybe he isn't as flexible as Pierce, but I don't see a reason why he doesn't end up being very highly picked in this upcoming draft.
I think that there is going to be an edge one conversation, Joe. Like right now, I probably have Pierce over, and I do have Pierce graded above Scourton, but like it's not within a difference where it's like, wow, you know, it's not major right now. You know, just kind of to be point blank about it. There is a world where Scourton is in that edge one conversation because of one thing. That kid, for being 6'4", 280 pounds. It's very rare that you see a kid that's 280 pounds on a 6'4" frame without any bad weight on him. Like he's massive, dude. Like it's wild.
And typically guys that are that big, like Tyree Wilson, are stiff.
Yes.
He's not stiff. There's no like watching him, you're like, I wish he was more bendy. He's not as bendy as Pierce, but it's like, shit, man, he can really turn the corner if he needed to.
And when you Google his name and you just look like a Google image or you look at his profile picture, you think you're looking at a 30-year-old man, dude, because he's got no neck. Like he's just a scary looking dude, right? And he's just, but so like the frame is the first thing that really pops off. He's 280 pounds and he's clean as heck, right? But you would say, and you're correct, 280 pounds, 6'4", you have assumptions in your minds, right? He's probably going to be a pure speed, the power guy. He's probably going to be a limited flexibility. And while he's nowhere near in the flexibility category of a James Pierce Jr., at 280 pounds, it's sufficient, man. Like it's good. It is on a solid overall level. But what separates him is twofold. One, kid is stupid strong for being 19 years old right now. Like it is rare speed to power. It's very Jared Verse-ish as far as the speed to power components.
That was like the first comp that comes to my mind. And I know it's a little lazy because it was this past draft, but he reminds me of a further along Jared Verse. It's like what Jared Verse could have been if he ended up at a Power 4 program and didn't start out at Albany.
I mean, and it's kind of wild to say because they play a similar brand, but he is 20-something pounds heavier than what Jared Verse played at Florida State. Like his upside in that category is probably higher. But whether it's the best team on the schedule or the last team on the schedule, you always knew where number 5 was. Like he was consistently making an impact on a game-to-game perspective. It didn't matter who the opponent was. But the first thing, Joe, is Purdue was smart. They knew that he is good flexibility, but he's not the craziest bendy guy of all time. So they actually used him as kind of wide alignments a lot because they wanted him to soft angles a little bit. And when you give this kid a runway, good luck, dude. Like absolutely good luck. Because what happens is once he gets upfield and he's able to threaten an outside shoulder, which he does on a decent clip, when an offensive tackle oversets and he has his chest towards the sideline, he opens up that inside shoulder, it's over with because of a couple things you said. One, speed to power. This kid puts his foot in the ground. He can go down your chest or he can win inside shoulder. Really powerful inside counter type of stuff. But also spin move. He's got a club rip. He's got a double swipe. Like there is something in there. There's some tools in the toolbox here, man. This isn't just a speed to power guy. There are some legitimate tools to work with here. And I think that as he continues to develop physically, because I don't think it's he doesn't lack anything right now physically. It's just about he's 19 years old, man. He's going to get more powerful. He's going to get more explosive. We have not seen the best of Nic Scourton, which is a scary thought for the SEC this year.
That's where I'm at. And I think that we saw a glimpse of what he's going to become in the spring game. And I don't want to do the bit of like spring games or everything, but like he took over that damn game. He took over that game. And I think that the ability for him to be coached by Mike Elka, who is known for finding the best in his defensive linemen. That's to me where I think that this progression takes another step. I don't know if he'll ever completely overtake James Pierce Jr., but I do believe that there is, like you're talking about, a conversation to be had. Yep. I could see them going 1-2. Like or at the very least, I could see Scourton ending up being a top 5, top 10 pick just because of the value at the position, even though maybe there's a couple of other guys that will have higher grades at other positions.
Well, I think it's going to come down to your scheme, right? Like, what are you looking for in a defensive end? Because the great thing about Pierce versus Scourton is, by the way, Nick Caraway is a good name. Nic Scourton is a absolute elite name. Absolutely
Badass.
Elite. They're very different football players, though. If I want the complete outside track bendy dude, then as a team, then yeah, I'm going to want James Pierce Jr. But if I'm a guy that wants a heavy-handed edge, so like I think of what Dennis Allen has liked traditionally with the New Orleans Saints with like the Cam Jordans and the Marcus Davenports, I guarantee he prefers Nic Scourton over James Pierce Jr. It doesn't mean that Scourton's even better than James Pierce. It just means that he stylistically fits that mold better of a heavy-handed edge setter, a physical speed to power dude. So I think it's really going to come down to preference with these two in the end, because I do believe that if Scourton has the impact at Texas A&M that I think he's capable of, there is going to be a debate here between Edge One. Again, it'll
be the only justified debate. This is not a Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson situation.
No, it's not. It is not. That's a great note. This is a justified conversation because I think that what we're dealing with here is two very young, super talented edges that are completely different, right? These aren't cookie cutters. We're not talking about two kids that are very similar to James Pierce Jr. and it's just like not even a conversation because Pierce is just better than that other player. You're talking about him compared to a Nic Scourton who brings a completely different skill set to the table. And I do believe in the end, we could have a very in-depth conversation of who is the more talented edge rusher if Scourton takes that step forward at Texas A&M this year.
At Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, hit the like button, 5-star review, and we'll talk to you later. Make sure you check out BetOnline for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.